On today's episode, we're sitting down with three of York District's finest for part 2 of our Masonic Roundtable.
You're listening to The First Three Knocks, a Masonic podcast in the District of York, where we discuss topics for the betterment of Masonry. The opinions discussed in this podcast are those of the individual and do not represent the views of Grand Lodge or any other Masonic body. Now, here are your hosts.
Good evening, brethren. Welcome again to Aurora Temple. We are sitting down. I'm your co-host, Worshipful Brother Bert Tellier, along with Brother Gino Scovio and our producer, Brother Steve Sprott. And we are today in part 2 on this episode, sitting down with Right Worshipful Brother John Trotter, past District Deputy Grand Master, also from Wellington Lodge, also a very worshipful Brother George Pohl, who is our past Grand Steward from Wellington Lodge, and very worshipful Brother Bruce Bellows from, I guess, Delta Lodge now, and the Rising Sun Lodge, past Grand Steward. So, brethren, welcome to part 2 of our series.
Welcome back.
It's always great to be spread thin.
You've got a couple of jobs now, don't you?
They're enjoyable.
Yeah.
They're enjoyable.
For our audience, Bruce has just recently become the Worshipful Master of Delta Lodge. So congratulations on
Thank you very
that,
much.
Special occasion.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to the year.
So last episode, we were talking about the ritual work and the significance of ritual work. And discussion point 2 on this episode is, I'll just throw it out there, is Freemasonry relevant in today's society? What do you guys think?
Start with saying yes.
Is it a hell
I think
yeah?
even more so.
Well, a lot of people will observe that Masonry set out hundreds of years ago to accomplish some social improvements, and a lot of those tasks are complete. We live in a pretty amazing society. We're here in Canada. We're used to our Western norms, but of course Masonry spread worldwide, and it's amazing how we can travel the world and go to Masonic lodges that are much like ours. Some have differences, minor, but mostly they are fraternal organizations that are very positive about the world we live in. So a lot of the tasks that we set out to do when the Rising Sun Lodge, for instance, was brand new, are done. The brethren of the early days of the Rising Sun Lodge here in Aurora would be very proud of how society has changed in ways they could never have imagined. Mm-hmm. But the ideas that we had equality, that we wanted to have a better standard of living, that we wanted to get along and have positive improvements, a lot of those things are done. There's no question about it. But where else are you able to say, I want to make a friend? How can you have a safer environment for it than the Masonic Lodge? As we spoke about earlier, it's the great-grandfather of all service clubs. All Shriners are Masons. Over 100 years ago, a lot of Masons said, you know what, we want to have more public fun. And off they went and became a Shriner. I'm a Shriner for over 25 years. I'm not the greatest Shriner, but I'm certainly supportive of it. There are so many ways that you can aid society by belonging to the craft. Bruce talked about Shriners that were working with one particular young man, helping every day. We've got lots of stories like that, lots and lots and lots and lots. It's just up to the individual Mason to decide to do it. Absolutely, it's relevant in today's society. There's no question. A lot of the early jobs are done. We do not have to be the overseers of equality in today's world. It's a pretty level playing field out there. We've done a lot of those things that we set out to do hundreds of years ago. But there's just not major work like that to do, but there certainly is a way to improve men one after the other. Each of us will become better by being Masons. It's golf for the imagination. We play against ourselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're not trying to be a better Mason than the guy next to us. We're trying to be a better Mason than we used to be.
Right.
And that makes it 100% relevant to today's world.
I think in some parts of the world there is still quite a bit of a struggle for a lot of segments of the population, and Masonry there takes on a very, very different role than it does here, where we've become quite stable.
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, some of the developing countries that still have a very, very strong Masonic community, such as Cuba, for instance, or maybe the Philippines, we've got more of a divide between different social classes. Masonry serves a very different role.
I wouldn't go to the socialist heartland and tell them there's a divide in
Well,
the social
you
classes.
see-
I think everybody's been brought down to the same low class. But the Cubans love Masonry, though.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
It's probably
For a different reason, though.
you're right.
The
for a different
politics of
reason.
Cuba, Fidel Castro was not against Masonry because Jose Martin had been a strong Mason, and he was one of the fathers of Cuban independence. So Fidel knew better than to touch Freemasonry there. I think that's the main reason why it didn't get outlawed.
Well, I think, but the point I was trying to make was, I think in some societies throughout the world, there's still this perception that Masonry is a stepping stone up in society. Now, Masonry, as we all profess, does take good men and make them better, to use that cliche. But here in North America, we've got a very stable society, whether you're in Canada or the United States. There's a lot more people that conduct their daily lives on the same level as everybody else. So there's not as much of a...
So you're saying the basic tasks
Yeah,
are done.
that's
which is
one of the basic
yeah.
tasks, like you were saying. Exactly.
In Cuba, they still do a lot of the real basic charity work. I mean, it's amazing how when we go to Cuba, we take some pretty basic stuff with us. The lodge is thrilled
for sure.
to have, to have it, and they are fairly poor, but the whole country is poor.
Yeah.
So but the lessons of fraternity are not lost on them.
I think they're even more enhanced. Probably. I haven't been to Cuba myself, but from all the people I've spoken with.
Well, I'm telling you, it's amazing.
It's very, very strong there.
Yep, it is strong. There's no question about it. And I tell you, the demonstrations that they make accidentally. I remember when I was at a lodge at one point in time for the after lodge. They wanted to make it. They had a cake for us because we were there. As a Wellington Lodge was there, and there was a lot of us, and we'd done well by them that night. We'd given some money and some other things, and they were very happy. And they had brought a cake for us, a special cake. And they carved it all up, and we all were given some cake. And they handed me my piece of cake on the thinnest plastic plate I've ever seen in my life. The kind where you had to put your hand under it to hold it.
As a plate.
And I was just, it was just crossing my mind how terrible this was to have this awful, thin, cheap plastic plate. When I looked around the room and noticed that only the members from Canada, the Wellington Lodge brethren, had the plastic plates. The brethren from the lodge there had cardboard. And I
Perspective.
thought, wow.
Yeah.
Perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think you're right that in some of those countries, Masonry will help them improve because they will have us, the great us, coming to see them and helping them along and encouraging them. I tell you, the Scottish Rite building in Havana had the nicest air conditioning I'd saw in the whole country.
No, is that right? That's where it got invested.
Grand Lodge didn't have such good. But the Grand Lodge building in Havana, one of the largest buildings in Havana, half taken over by the government, though.
And there's one of the things we've been fortunate, John and I, to travel around the world a little bit and experience Masonry in different parts of the world.
Right.
And it's nice to know that the basic fundamentals of the ritual and the craft, no matter where you are exactly the same. And that holds true. And then, where I was going to go with my opening here is in today's society here, there is an awful lot of individuals that are looking for something with a deeper meaning. And I find this a lot, talk to some of the younger members that are starting to join us now, and they've got work, they've got home life, maybe they still live with their parents a little bit. They go out and they do the bar thing, they might play sports on a couple nights a week. But that doesn't give them the fulfillment that they're looking for.
Right.
Bar gets old.
Yeah.
And it's fun to hang out with your pals at the rink or whatever, but some people want to make a deeper connection, and they're just busy and they're not really sure how to go about doing that. And one of the wonderful things about Masonry is that it affords them that opportunity to make a connection with a number of people.
Yeah.
And again, going to the worldwide organization, no matter where you are in the world, if you identify yourself as a Mason to another Mason, you immediately have something in common with them, which makes the conversation go a little bit easier.
Common ground.
The trust factor goes up.
You just made a point of how busy we are. We got the sports, and we got the work, and we got the family, and we've all had these things.
Yep.
Our parents had these things.
Not new.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, people come in here to a meeting, they sit, we have a nice quiet time, we have a very nice meeting. It's almost like that's a slow down night for them.
Sure.
Just to re-energize, sit back, relax, enjoy the friendship without having to put a lot of thought into it. I remember working with a guy years ago, and he says, I don't want to listen to that music. I just want something instrumental only. I don't have to put any thought into it. It's just there in the background. And sometimes Masonry can be that during the week, too, for people who are very hurried. And so, going forward, maybe this is something that we're going to see a resurgence in for that reason.
Well, George is right. It was always a place where people could come to say, I want more. Mm-hmm. It was for me too, and many years ago. I mean, am I capable of having a drink? Yes. But I realized that you go to lodge, you don't drink in lodge. And it never would occur to me to have a drink in lodge. It's not what I'm there for. You're there for self-improvement. Masonry is the oldest self-help group going. Self-improvement writ large. And long before the other organizations started those functions, we were doing it. Mm-hmm. And you look back over history, and whether you do a microcosm in Aurora and go through the past masters of the Rising Sun Lodge or Grand Lodge of Canada, and see or the United States, and look at the George Washingtons, the John A. Macdonald, Right Worshipful Brother John A. Macdonald, and see how connected they were with what they wanted to do for the world. Nothing different today.
Right.
Nothing different at all. There's lots of people who say this is part of how I'm going to improve myself and the country I live in. Mm-hmm. You've heard me talk probably about the Masonic Foundation of Ontario, the charitable arm of Grand Lodge. What a nice, safe, easy place to put money. It's tax-deductible, charitable receipt, but you don't have to worry about whether it's all going to be wasted on office expenses.
Yeah, it's automatic.
Well, hang on a second, because if you do it through our district, the district deputy year to year chooses a charity that he's involved with, that is personal to him, whether it's something that's hit his family or something he's always done, for a variety of different reasons. So he's going to oversee that. But then your money, if you say, oh yes, the district deputy Grand Master's charity is X, I want to give to it, the money goes to the Grand Lodge, the Masonic Foundation of Ontario. They boost your money up. I think 10%. 10% increase.
10%.
So if you want to give $1,000, all of a sudden 10% bump when it goes back to the district deputy Grand Master's charity. and tax receipt, the whole bit, very safe. And I've been to the Masonic Foundation offices. It's on a shoestring, let me tell you. I don't know, have you been there? It's
No.
the second floor of the Grand Lodge building.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much money goes through. Amazing, all the different district charities that exist in this province. Every district's got different district charities. The Grand Master's got a charity. Different lodges have charities. There's all sorts of different choices to make, and they're right there for you. So easy, so simple. And all you got to do is talk about today's society. And if you want to do more than give some money, get involved in the district charity as well.
There's a few episodes on Netflix right now put out by the Grand Lodge of England. And in one of those episodes, they show their benevolence arm, and it's run like a small company. So all the people,
a big company, and they do well with. And got to remember, benevolence and charity, two different things.
Yes,
charity
absolutely.
is for outside of the craft. Benevolence is for inside the craft. And there's lots of Grand Lodge jurisdictions around the world that have old Masons' homes and stuff like that, like in England. I highly recommend the Grand Lodge of England website. It is wonderful to look at. Or as we like to call it, it's United Grand Lodge of England. We call it ugly.
Ugly.
Yeah, ugly. It's not ugly. It's quite nice.
That's right.
But there's an inclusive Grand Lodge, working hard to tell everybody, come join us. And they're not all like that. There's some Grand Lodges that say, oh, we've got a long list of rules why we don't want you.
Yeah.
But that's not working well for them.
Doesn't seem to be.
We need to do more of exactly what you fellows are doing here. It's very positive. And this is Masonic symbolism. This podcast you're doing is symbolic of exactly how relevant Masonry is to today's society. You are operating a symbol. Talk about a working tool.
Well
I still
said.
think we're in the learning stage of
said.
how we're going to change for the future, and things like this are a very good beginning, because 10 years ago this kind of thing wouldn't have happened.
Well, there weren't the podcasts to speak of about 10 years ago, but as I said earlier, when I started the craft,
Yeah.
there were no signs on the building. When I was master, I had an open house. Got me in trouble. Of course, there's going to be those changes,
But that probably changed when they brought out light fixtures.
but I can
too,
tell you,
didn't
the ritual hasn't changed at all. The ritual, other than a few little words here and there, the ritual hasn't changed much at all, and that's what's not going to change. The ability to go into a lodge and join slowly. We're all familiar with what the initiation rite of joining the craft is. We need to tell everybody that it is serious. It is not funny. It is not light. It is not any sort of embarrassment at all. I mean, when I joined the craft, they made a big deal of lying about it. And there was all kinds of things said to make you have trepidation.
Nervous,
About,
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. We need to make sure that everybody understands that it's a memory. Everybody at this table has had exactly the same initiation. No different at all. And would anyone describe it as being a joke? No.
No.
But we've all come away with different experiences.
But we all had the exact same experience.
Well,
And
different feelings.
I don't imagine that's true. I'm sure we all took it very seriously, and it's a wonderfully warm evening. I remember the deacon that took me through my first degree in the mid '80s, early '80s. I remember him well. I remember what he said to me before he went through the door. He said, "Don't worry, I've never lost a candidate." But we all realized, I came to realize years later, that he was new at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was the first.
You don't
candidate.
realize that
Well,
until
I
you've
was,
been through
I was,
it.
I was his second candidate. My father had been his first. Moments before, because we split a degree,
Yeah.
right? And so, he'd said the perfect thing.
Yeah.
You'll be fine, and we need to say that to candidates. I think that we need to talk to candidates more, not less, and explain to them how positive the experience is. You've heard me talk many times about dues and initiation fees. I want to make sure I give back to Masonry as much as I can financially, because if I could go back in time, get that DeLorean out, I wished I'd paid more for my initiation fee. When and when I joined Scottish Rite, because of my age, I paid a discount. Because I was on the younger side.
So young.
Yeah, there was a discount, and I think that's a great idea. If a lodge wants to jack its initiation fee significantly, and then say, but if you're under 30 or 28, you get a discount. That's a great idea.
It's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
I never thought of that.
Well, I'm here for you.
Okay, I'm glad.
There's no charge for that advice.
Invoice
is coming.
These things work, but you guys, seriously, you are symbolic of how relevant Masonry is to our society.
Yeah.
At the end of World War II, we saw just a boom in our membership,
And World War One as well.
and World War One also.
Sure, because the people that had been in the
Yep.
the armies wanted the camaraderie.
Exactly, and we're starting to see that again.
Armies?
No, the camaraderie, the desire for the camaraderie.
Yeah, but not in the numbers, because of course there's no
and it's for a totally different reason.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of people now who are solely connected with people through their cell phones or through the internet. Everybody texts each other, and you're not having as much personal interaction with people.
Well, they've always
Day to day,
People have always said, "Oh, the telephone's going to stop interaction.
The fax machine.
The fax machine's going to stop.
Revolutionize.
That damn Elvis Presley."
No, but the point is that they're now looking for that,
Well, as George said, they want.
this is the ideal.
You can go to a bar with a group of friends, but eventually that gets old, and then an individual says, "I want more," and George has got it absolutely right. They don't always find us. They don't always know that this is here. That's why this is fantastic.
Well, that's
Absolutely
why
fantastic.
putting an open house for your lodge, friend to friend, or something online. That's where they're going to find it.
I agree completely.
We're not going to read the newspaper like.
Well, in
we once were.
1992, people read newspapers.
Yeah,
by
well,
goodness.
exactly.
That's why
I
they
see it
complained
at
to
home
Grand
now,
Lodge
and I
about
throw
it.
it
They
right in the
said,
blue
"What's
box.
he doing in
It's
the
full of
newspaper?"
coupons. I can find it online when I want to look for that particular thing.
I agree with you completely.
Putting these apps together, doing these podcasts, just kind of in tuning ourselves into the new age of thinking, right? Providing that access of information.
But thinking about exactly the same thing.
Of everything that's been
Absolutely
before us.
right.
Absolutely.
What you're doing, I think, makes a ton of sense. But it's the message that goes out. It hasn't changed. The ritual's not changing anytime soon. We're not going to have open lodges anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to do it the same way we do it, because it really works. And if I can't see any other location where you can do what we do. Make friends slowly over time, to the point where you're really looking forward to seeing those people. And even if you don't see them, you can imagine them.
Yeah.
It's amazing the friends that I've got from diverse backgrounds. I could never have gotten without the craft.
Well, that's a good point too, because again, Masonry, you don't have to be one denomination. It's open to many. As long as you have
Actually, it's preferable.
a belief of a higher being, then that's really what counts. And I think often when I see somebody come in and want the Quran or the Quran or something like that, I say to myself, why is everybody not a Mason? We'd just all be better at everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know?
That leads to an excellent point you just brought up, Gino, and that our society is they want it to be a multicultural integration of individuals and different cultures, and in Freemasonry we see that, because people come from a broad variety of backgrounds, and when we come together in a lodge meeting, we are of a single purpose, one mind. We want to accomplish the same things. To paraphrase the general charge, we want to communicate. We want to be happy ourselves, and we want to communicate that happiness to others.
Bingo. And yeah, that is the number one thing. Got to remember, primarily we are a fraternity.
Yes.
Primarily, the number one point of Freemasonry And
That's the first thing we should be saying when somebody asks us.
Well, I'm
what's
here
Masonry
on a
about?
podcast saying it right now.
Oh, of course we know
Platform's
that.
working.
But there's
Yeah.
a lot of members that don't know what to say.
But that's exactly right. Lots of members do not know how to discuss the craft at all. But George is right. Be happy ourselves and communicate that happiness to others, and it goes over well. I mean, you guys are gonna you've got many years of enjoying and getting comfortable with the craft. The master's chair is years off for you. You're still working on proving yourself in the second degree. How's that coming?
I've been busy with the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
that's
go.
the excuse. But I guarantee you guys, you're going to love it as the future unfolds. You're going to go into a lodge one day that you didn't know that you were going to visit, and you're going to sit down beside somebody who you're going to bond with in a way that you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
The Doug Hothams that of this world are out there, and they're in lodges because they want to have friends too.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing, and it's our living room, each of us, and we're not in each other's sock drawer.
Right.
We got a little bit of, we're getting to know that personality. I love saying that a candidate comes into Masonry and brings just his personality. That's it.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
I didn't see that he rolled up in a Tesla.
Because it
I
doesn't
didn't
matter.
see it.
Yeah.
But the point is I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I don't know what house he came from. I'm not sure who he's related to. I don't know what he does for a living. I've got Masons I've known for ages who I just care for deeply. I couldn't find their house. I want to see them in lodge.
And yet, I feel that as I get older, I'll never grow old alone.
No,
Never.
no, that's right.
No.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the lodge gives us that opportunity. We have to take it. We have to decide how we're going to do it. But I mean, this guy here, I just would love to do it all again.
Yeah.
Oh, I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it. And I'm jealous. He's going to do it for the first time. He's going to do it for the first time. And it's just a wonderful experience that's just going to keep getting better and better and better as you get more. This is your fourth time in the master's chair,
Yeah.
and it just gets more and more comfortable. I mean, it's a different lodge.
It's a different lodge, different group of guys. Different tasks are going to be ahead of me,
Of course.
but they're not things that I haven't seen before.
Lodge-
Whether or not I experienced them myself, I've still seen them.
Lodge looks very different from the master's chair.
Absolutely.
And
I've
of
heard
course, you're involved also in the Grand Lodge Officers Association. You're on the executive of that now, and you're going to develop friends through multiple districts because of that.
Well, that was one of the points that I made at the end of installation last week when I addressed the lodge. All the guys that were there for the lodge that night on our installation, they're the people that I've looked to for many years already as a source of help and guidance and friendship. You can just go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And any lodge that's in a little bit of difficulty or challenged in any way, they're not alone. They just need to know where to look.
But that's the thing; they have to know where to look.
They have to know where to look.
Guidance.
And that's what I think that a lot of people coming through into Masonry right now is that they're learning where to look. And we have to
Provide.
embrace them.
Yeah.
We have to provide for them. Because if they come and we're not ready for them, or we don't provide what they're looking for, we're not going to keep them.
Well, I think the ritual will keep them, and Masonry is very
To a
patient.
point.
Masonry is very patient. It can wait for someone to come back, and I mean, if we give them a negative experience, then that's a problem. And there are some lodges that just are not interested in doing it right. They're not interested in being part of the greater. They decided that they're doing it wrong and they like it that way, but that's okay. Masonry's got many gears and cogs, and it's a big old world. And if Masonry falls on hard times in one area, it's going to go better somewhere else. If the Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario is having a hard time, which it's not, maybe the Grand Lodge of Brazil's kicking it, and
Right.
which it is. And there's lots of places in the world, same as lodges. You know,
absolutely.
I've known lodges that have merged. I've known lodges that have gone dark. That'll happen.
Yeah.
That'll happen.
So you guys see a lot of people, and you guys meet a lot of people, and you know, we talked briefly a second ago that the first thing we say Masonry is a fraternity, right?
Number one.
So you find a friend on the street, and he's curious about it. You know, as younger Masons, I won't say new anymore. Okay, as younger Masons,
Not getting away with
how
it.
do you explain further? You know, okay, it's a fraternity. What does that mean? What's the next
Yeah.
thing you say? How do you really tell them more about what Freemasonry is?
Well, Gino, that becomes almost a personal explanation, because Masonry will have a slightly different draw depending on why you came to Masonry in the first place. I mean, you can say that it is a great place to learn. It is a great place to expand your philosophical thinking. You can say that it's a fun time with great guys. It all depends on where you're coming from and what you're looking for. It is all of those things, but for your personal experience, that's what you're going to explain to that individual.
George is dead on. The next thing that follows that is to say, I love it. Then if it's a friend of yours, the reason he's asking you is because he probably knows you're in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he wants to know that you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to explain to him that I can't explain an organization that's hundreds and hundreds of years old in its modern form in 6 seconds. So come and have a seat with me. I'll talk to you at length, because it's a long conversation.
I asked that question again because just recently I had a cousin this weekend come up and say, hey, I noticed you got knighted in the Knights Templar, and you're into Masonry and you're very proud of it. You post your pictures, you know, of your brethren, of the stuff you do outside the lodge, and, you know, when we can do pictures here. I said, absolutely. And he said, you know, what's it all about? And I said, well, it's a fraternity, and really it's about making a good person, a good man, a better man. And you live in Ajax. I'd be happy to put you in touch with some guys there and maybe go to a dinner with you so you're not alone, and just introduce you to some fellas. I mean, you're welcome to drive all the way to Aurora. I don't know if you'd want to do that. More than happy to have you out there too. And he said, you know, I'd like that. But again, I didn't know
Yeah, you should bring him here. Yeah.
how you would do that, right? So bring him into one of our own events, and kind of like how do you take that next step with that person?
Just
He's
exactly-
family, so we got the
exactly
trust
what you're
already,
saying.
right?
Exactly
you've
what you're
already
doing is right.
You've already started down the right path.
Bring him to dinner. And someone who's never experienced a Masonic dinner is going to be blown away.
Right.
I mean, we haven't even touched on that at all during this podcast. But the formality and the seriousness that is in our dinners, in our formal dinners, not just the chili cook-off.
That's the best one of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Not for Gino.
They
got me last year.
someone who's never seen it comes in, sits down, watches a head table come in, watches maybe a piper, watches everybody in tuxedos on a big night, an installation or an official visit. They have a good dinner. Then they watch us do our toasts. You know, I mean, I was at King Solomon's Lodge the other night. I mean, I've been going to King Solomon's Lodge for 35 years. But I watched two magnificent orators. One gave the toast to the visitors, and one responded to the toast to the visitors. And I'll tell you that all of my Masonic work in all of my years was worth that 10 minutes.
Wow.
The
High
guy-
praise. High praise.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. It's just amazing to see these two guys do their thing. Kerwin Davies was the United Church minister. I don't know what church. But he's a retired minister. Great guy. He was the grand chaplain at one point in time.
So he had a bit of speaking experience.
Sure. So he not only has the speaking experience, but he does a great job of welcoming the visitors. That's his job. His job is to toast the visitors. And then the senior past Grand Master in North America, who is C. Arthur Downs, who is the past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Prince Hall Masons of Canada, he stood up to respond. And as eloquent as the first was, the second was everybody's good, and without being competitive about it.
Yeah.
They were just
proper,
beautiful orators, and they gave out wonderful sentiments. And if you're brand new, if you had never been to anything like that before, you would be blown away by it. I was blown away by it, and I'd seen those two guys speak many times.
Huh.
I had Arthur Downs respond to a toast to the visitor for me when I was doing the Groshaw 30 thing. You may remember George and I set up the Groshaw 30 dinner when Ron Groshaw had his 30th anniversary of being Grand Master. And I asked him to do it, and I said, you're my guest. I want you to be my guest. And he's just a tremendous gentleman. Oh, John, that's not right. I said, no, you're responding to the toast to the visitors. Be fine. I'll pay for your ticket. And so everything went fine. He didn't say anything else. I didn't know what he was going to say. The toast to the visitors went off, and he got up at the head table, huge head table, all the past Grand Masters, everybody there, 680 people.
Wow.
And let's bear in mind, Arthur Downs was the Grand Master the year I was born. I mean, it's just bizarre.
This was 18.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And the man's been a Grand Master a long time. Yeah. And he's a diminutive. He's not a big fellow. He's not 6'9". He's like
certainly not imposing.
No.
Stature-wise.
And he gets up and he takes his time, comes up to the head table, and everybody's looking at him. And what's he gonna do? And he gets up to the microphone, and he opens his mouth, and he starts to sing.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And he sings, what a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in, why it's almost like being in love. The crowd goes nuts. They can't believe that this has just happened. And when the crowd settles, big applause, and when they settle down, he looks around the room and he goes, well, I just want you to know that Right Worshipful Brother Trotter paid for my dinner tonight, and I guess that means I have to sing for my supper. I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I'll never forget that.
Of course. Yeah.
So you take your friend and bring him to a night that even has 10% of that.
Yeah.
And he sees the formality where we say, we're going to toast Grand Lodge. We're now going to respond to the toast to Grand Lodge. We're going to toast the visitors. We're going to respond. And maybe he'll get his name mentioned, and maybe he'll stand up. He will remember these things. Mm-hmm. And if he's ever called upon to set up a dinner, especially after he's in the craft for a while, he'll know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have a proper dinner. We're going to do something that means something.
Yeah.
We're not just going to all gather around the chili pot.
Grab
we're
the
going
pizza.
We're not going to grab the pizza.
Yeah.
We're going to have we do a nice job of it. If you want to go to McDonald's, go ahead. But we do a nice job of a formal dinner, and we don't take forever.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half.
Done in an hour.
Done an hour and a half.
Yep.
And yet we've toasted the Queen. We've sang the royal anthem.
Yeah.
We've maybe even toasted the new visitors. Who knows but we've done it. We've put some formality and some seriousness.
Some thought.
We've prepared.
It's very important.
Like
that
Arthur Downs did.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And the other night, same thing. Unbelievable the way they talked to each other and to the crowd.
It's one of the great things about every meeting. If you do it right, it's an occasion. Mm-hmm. And if we treat it like an occasion, people will want to have more of them and more participation in them. So we should work hard, make sure that the lodge meeting goes well and is done well. And even if you're having simple fare, make it an occasion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure, the lodge that says after the lodge is over, okay, brethren, we've got a loaf of Wonder Bread, and I
Some
think
peanut
there's
butter.
mustard around here somewhere, and I believe we have cheese. Guess what?
Not a great occasion.
No, it wasn't
Yeah.
a great occasion. Somebody has to say, we care, and then it'll go well. But lodges are all different.
When that opportunity is presented to us, we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the candidates that are coming in or our guests to put our best foot forward. Anything less is just not going to cut it anymore.
But never did.
Never did.
Never did.
Never will.
Never did. They tell
No,
you.
and nothing's changed in that regard.
Right, Worship Brother John A. MacDonald. They had to make sure that things worked well. I mean, it worked. The good stuff worked then, and it works today. Some of those basic things about Freemasonry never will change. I bet you if you go forward 100 years, you'll still find lodges that do a lousy job. Sometimes. And other lodges that do just great jobs. I go to lots of lodges. George goes all over the province to lodges. We see a great variety. George, one of his lodges that he went to, and I went with the team, was a lodge that was founded in 1812 in
Napanee.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been meeting in the same building since 1941. Look at where we are here. This lodge has been meeting in this building since 1885.
1885.
Wow. The Brethren of the Day left a wonderful legacy for us. And we have to be careful that we leave a legacy for the brethren that will be around when we're gone.
We're only here as caretakers.
That's right. The ritual says that the time will most assuredly come, and the best and wisest know not how soon.
Yeah.
We'll be gone.
As caretakers.
We'll be gone. Wink of an eye. And so the guys that did Rising Sun Lodge, boy, they pushed this boat away from the shore really well. That boat got some distance. And so are we going to paddle the boat, put a motor on? What are we going to do? And that applies to this lodge and every other lodge in Ontario or in the world. But it is so relevant to today's society, and this podcast proves it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious it's relevant to today's society for everybody in this room. One of the challenges that we see more and more maybe is the way in which we express that message. The format, and I mean the podcast helps.
I think it's great.
Podcast helps.
I 30 years ago, I was doing newspaper articles and having an open house and getting in trouble.
I don't think we've been in trouble yet, have we?
Not yet.
Not that
Speaking
we're aware of.
Speaking of an open house, I
We're not aware of
remember.
it.
Speaking of an open house, I remember here one Saturday afternoon. We typically take part in Open Doors Aurora, which is the historical walk through town
Very
each
smart.
year, and we set the large room up with all the furnishings of the room. And this group of people came in, and there was this young lady came in, and we happened to have on the altar all 5 versions of the volume of sacred law. So we had the Holy Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Gita. There was one other, and I don't remember what it was. But
They were there.
she says, "Wow, I had no idea." She says, "People have this notion of what we are, and then when they come in and see what reality is, they're typically blown away."
Sure.
And communicating that and enlightening people as to what we are, who we are, and what we do, that's going to be a key to us going forward. You know, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories out there.
There's a lot of good ones.
Well, but
And
the
yeah.
basic conspiracy theory with regards to Masonry is that we control the world. Well, I say that there's some truth to that because we work for good. That's what we do. So in that fashion, we do exercise a level of control over the world. We push it in a positive direction. That's, like I said before, the people that were against the craft include Hitler and Stalin and Khomeini. The people that don't think the craft's any good are generally not reputable people. But I can give you a laundry list a mile long of the people that do think the craft is good. But we're better explained by our enemies because they are not a high quality bunch. Those 3 alone saw it.
Exactly.
They decided it was important to outlaw Freemasonry, outlaw it completely. And yet in today's Germany, the craft's alive and well.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many countries in the world the craft works hard in. And it's wonderful. I mean, I've been to lodge in Istanbul, Turkey.
Oh, well.
It's amazing. Amazing how serious it is there. Relatively new. I mean, by the Rising Sun standards, I think 60 or 70 years old. But it's just amazing to see it flourishing there. I mean, been in Israel, and then do things like London, England, and Scotland, and go to the Mother Kilwinning, and go to Roslyn Chapel. Unbelievable. The history is thick and deep. But
and it's not going to go anyway anytime soon.
because we're not going to change the basic fundamentals.
That's right.
I mean, I agree with you completely that how to communicate with people has to change, because we don't hold a lodge in a tavern anymore.
Right.
When we were holding the lodge in the tavern, the new members came to us. They sure did.
It was a good audience.
A good audience right there.
Yep.
Or
Big drawing card.
Or in Mr. Smith's hardware store.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Mr. Smith had the lodge upstairs. It helped his business too.
Yeah.
And the towns were small, and the numbers were few. There wasn't the kind of population that we've got. So this, just like you were saying, this allows people to go online and say, I want information about Freemasonry. Boom, and here it is. But it's relatively new. The Grand Lodge started when I was district deputy, bringing in candidates in a formal way. George was one of the first district secretaries that had to handle that. You sat in lodge.
Last Thursday.
Tell them about that story.
Sure.
Yeah.
It was the installation for Worshipful Brother Philip Grantham of
King Solomon.
King Solomon's Lodge. And at the end of the night, he wanted to make a point. He said, where's Very Worshipful Brother George Pole? Raise your hand. So I raised my hand, and he said, I want to thank you, because when I wanted to join Masonry in this part of the world, I called you. And through Grand Lodge, we connected, and we had a conversation, and ultimately I guided him to have a conversation with Eric Holt, and he wound up joining King Solomon's Lodge. So it does work.
Amazing.
But it's not something that you had consciously remembered.
No, I mean, in
But
that
he
year,
had.
Yeah.
That's
Of course
right.
it did.
That was a lasting impression.
The impression.
Absolutely.
A very good one.
surprised.
Yeah. Leaving good impressions is what we do well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you bring your friend up from Ajax yet?
No, we just talked yesterday, actually.
Yesterday.
So he'll be here soon?
Yeah, I urge you to bring him here, even if later on, and bring him here for his initiation, passing, and raising. And if later on he says, I don't like the drive, okay, fine. But let him do a couple of years of the drive, and it's not that big of a deal. But he's your friend. The very best way for you to do it is here, and you can as soon as he gets his initiation, say to him, listen, I know where you live in Ajax. I know where the lodge building is in Ajax. I'm taking you now to Canada Lodge or whatever's down there. I mean, I go to lodge in Ajax, and then you'd say, okay, here we're going to go to lodge down where you are, because you'll be very comfortable doing that, and it'll be good for you as you approach the east, because you're going to get around as well. There's a lot of lodges that you guys haven't been to. I mean, you told me you haven't been to York Temple. You got to go to York Temple.
No, it's on
How
our
many
list.
lodges meet in York Temple? 6 or 7?
Oh, more than that. More than
it?
that. And Scottish Rite and York Temple, York Rite.
Yeah.
It's a very nice building, 1100 Millwood, and behind the Science Center, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
Roughly speaking. And it's been there a long time. Beautiful, 2 beautiful blue rooms, one big, one small.
I used to go there all the time when we had lodges in our district.
Is that
I
right?
met there,
What
but-
lodges did you go see?
Well, York was a
Sure,
member of
York.
Toronto District 6,
Yeah.
which we were. Harry L. Martin.
Harry L. Martin, yeah. Doesn't matter. You went there
There's
a
another
lot.
one
Yeah.
I don't remember, yeah.
Sure, well, it's still there.
Yeah.
And there's lots of lodge buildings to see as the years go by. But remember, the individual lodges are a collection of men.
Yes.
The building is where they meet. But the building has some distinct personalities as well. And that's where you find all this great history that we're surrounded by right now. These pictures of time immemorial. Tremendously inspiring. Tremendously. Especially if you were part of it a long time.
Nobody at this table's been around for a long time.
No.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that Freemasonry is very relevant in today's society. That would be a good synopsis, and I really appreciate all of your insight and experience and stories, brethren. That says it very well. So, I know there's maybe an event, very worshipful sir, you might want to share with our audience coming up at Malone Lodge.
Absolutely. On November the 19th, our District Deputy Grand Master, Alan Dresser, Right Worshipful Brother Alan Dresser, has asked that we, the team, the Lodge of Instruction team, put on a District Lodge of Instruction. And it, as I say, will be November the 19th at Malone Lodge in Sutton. And registration will begin about 6:30, and the event will begin at 7. It's open to Master Masons, and we will be covering the mechanics of the 3 degrees.
Well, there you go.
Now, hang on. It's important to say that it's informal. No regalia. Don't need a tuxedo. Don't need a suit. Just informal. If you're coming from work, show up.
Yeah.
Don't worry about your regalia. Don't worry about what you're wearing. It's a very informal evening. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
We'll throw it on our Facebook page as well as the app, most likely by tomorrow, so we can get a little bit of people looking over the time. They can circle the calendars well in advance.
I
Make sure we
appreciate
help promote that as well.
And especially important for anybody who's trying to do a good job as a deacon or a warden. They would gain a lot from it. But remind them, no prep, no regalia, no suit. Just show up. And if you have to come late, come late.
And if you're a note taker, bring a pad and a pen.
There you go. There you go.
Looking forward to it.
Well, a great opportunity to work on ritual, which I think we all agree is very important.
I heard that somewhere.
Somehow. Thank you for sharing that. So, brethren, on behalf of the first 3 Knocks, I want to say a special thank you to all 3 of you for joining us, sharing your points of
Thank
view.
you for having us.
It was a lot of fun.
It's been an
Very
absolute
much.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the First 3 Knocks. Happy to meet, sorry to part, happy to meet again.